In today's video, I know I've talked about the most common mistakes in watercolor painting before, but I wanted to distill all of the main ones that you'll see as a beginner artist or an advanced watercolor artist, doesn't matter, but all the most common watercolor mistakes that I see as a teacher and how to fix them. So if you're ready, if you're struggling with hard lines, with cauliflowers, with not knowing why something is happening over and over again, it's very frustrating, then this video is most likely going to be for you. So let's dive in. So the first and probably the most common mistake that I see when I'm teaching specifically, other teachers might disagree with me, have other ideas. But the most common mistake I see in any level of watercolor artist is overworking the paper. Overworking the paper. We all do it. I do it. I have so many times throughout the week when I'm painting whatever, paintings that I'm like, well, I just ruined that one. I overworked it to death. I should have taken a break and gotten fresh eyes, and I just didn't. So how to avoid this very common mistake is, well, you do have to train your brain to be like, hey, you should stop. But always stop like 60 to 75% of the way throughout a painting. So way before you even get to 100%, because most likely when you reach like 80, most people are already at the 100%, at the 100%. So stop at like 60 to 75%. When you think you're like 60 to 75% of the way done with your painting, stop, brushes down, take a step back, looking at your painting from a distance. It gives you a very different perspective. Also, going to the bathroom or getting a snack, whatever, doing some sort of 5-minute break and coming back and getting fresh eyes is also going to give you a different perspective. Trust me. The more time you have away from your painting, actually the bigger and broader your perspective gets. Like the day you paint it, you're way more attached to it emotionally, and so you're gonna have all these critiques. But then the next day, you're probably gonna love it because you're not as emotionally invested because you didn't just spend all this time. So give yourself those breaks. Like 60% of the way through a painting, take a break, a bathroom break, a snack break, whatever, and come back to it. You might have less attachment to it, less of that mind chatter still going, and you might have it. But if it's still like, I still don't know what I'm doing, then take like an hour or maybe a full day break if you really are focused on this painting and you want to complete it and don't want to ruin it. So that is my overworking the paper avoiding trick, but you do have to be aware of where your 60% is. So the more you practice, the more aware you will become, obviously, of where you're at in a painting. But if you're following a tutorial or you have a reference photo or reference subject or something, stop around the halfway point just a little bit more. And you will get fresh eyes, and then you will look at it differently. The second mistake that I see most watercolor artists, even into their well-seasoned years, making is using too much water. This is such a common problem. I have a really great video that just came out this month on, one part of the video was on gradients, and that video is gonna help really cement the little tiny tricks like blotting or doing little tiny hummingbird sips I mentioned now. Stuff like that is going to really help you with not using too much water. Whether you're doing a gradient or it's just a stroke or whatever, you want to go back and watch that tutorial. We'll link it in this video. But the solution or the way to avoid this water issue of puddling, and that's where you get the cauliflowers and the hard lines around the puddles, is when you have too much water. So in order to avoid that, use the blotting technique, use the hummingbird sip technique. Again, go back to that video that I'll be linking, and basically just make sure you're not using too much water. And I have tons of videos on this channel, like the tea to butter exercise video on water control, and then the one I just mentioned from this month that will really help you get those tricks down. Next most common mistake that I see in any level of artist, I'm guilty of this one still to this day, is not planning ahead. So most people, when they sit down in my workshops or in retreats, like 90% of my students, after I do a demo, they'll sit down to start painting what they just saw me do, and they'll be like, it's ruined, it's over, and it's ruined, I can't do this. And I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, obviously. I'm not being condescending. This is just the words that I hear on a daily basis on my retreats, and I get it. Being a beginner at anything is frustrating. You're gonna be frustrated. But the problem is that you can't just do something once and it's gonna be perfect. You have to plan ahead. So especially if you're coming up with an idea from your head, or you're looking out in nature and you're wanting to sketch something and paint something and have it, you know, follow some sort of principles of composition and all this, you need to plan ahead. So oftentimes that means doing thumbnail sketching exercises. That means like doing word mapping exercises for the ideas that you have to get them on paper. So planning ahead is what helps you avoid all of those little mistakes that you just need to kind of get out of your system in the beginning of your paintings, and then you feel more established throughout the painting as it continues to go along, because you got those little like trial and error things out of the way. But if you take the time to do the trial and error stuff on your sketchbook or on a notepad or whatever, then you have less of those trial and errors in the actual painting. I also remind myself when I'm trying something new, or I'm even doing something that I'm seasoned at, like flowers, but I just want to try a new color palette or new arrangement or composition, is sometimes I have to paint something at least 3 times, usually 5 or more times, to get the one that I really like. So we have so much of this expectation of perfecting the thing that we just learned the first time we paint it. And that's just not realistic for any artist at any level. So remember that. So those are the main 3 mistakes. Obviously there's more, like not using too many staining colors. If you want to lift any color, there are staining colors out there. You can Google it and find out, depending on what brand you use, it'll be different colors. But there are staining colors out there. I still use staining colors. But if you are wanting to lift color, you won't be able to lift the staining colors as easily. So that's another big mistake a lot of watercolor artists make, is they don't realize that fact, and then they go to lift up opera rose or something like that, and it's left a bit of a residue and it's impossible to lift, basically. So staining colors, there's obviously the mistake of not buying quality paper, 100% cotton paper, and even quality materials in general, because you will see a big difference in your results. I'm not saying that you have to break your bank with all your supplies, but paper is probably the most important one to get really good high quality paper, because it will help a lot in improving water control, improving hard lines, improving those pesky problems that you get when you use too much water. A lot of those problems go away when you start using really quality paper. And then incorrect brush usage is another really common one, where people are using the wrong brush for the wrong technique, or the brush for the wrong technique, etc. So just exploring your brushes more and trying out new and different brushes, and seeing, you know, what a quill brush does differently than a round brush, even though they look pretty similar, and what an angled wash gets you instead of a flat angled or a flat wash brush. And just exploring different stroke patterns for these brushes, and you know, repeating those stroke patterns over and over again. This is something that we talk about in the Art Within, my online course. So if you want to check out those exercises, they're in that course. But it will help you really get a good grasp of how the huge range that you have of different looks and aesthetics with one brush. But then I think the final and the most important mistake that I see of all time, that might be a bit meta for some, or a little bit like, okay, it's not really, but it is the biggest mistake I see out there. I've taught millions of people this medium, and I've seen it. It's the most common, and that is you're afraid to make mistakes. So solution for the people out there, all of us are guilty of this, who are afraid to make mistakes: embrace mistakes. That's why I encouraged in the first video we dropped this month, the month of July 2024, was all about different practices that you can do in 5 to 15 minutes or less even, every single day, to become more creative, to become more playful. Those practices, go back and watch that video, are perfect exercises for, I don't care about the mistakes that I make in them, because they're just practice. So have a 5 to 15 minute daily practice where it's just about play, scribbling on paper. It could be sketching, it could be writing, it could be whatever. And there's no expectations. You're not like grading yourself constantly throughout the experience. You're just there to do it. That is very important for your brain, to get really confident and comfortable with holding a paintbrush or holding a pencil and doing something creative, but with confidence, because you don't have those expectations. Because then it's going to help train your brain to be more comfortable with it when you pick up the paintbrush and you're painting roses, or you're playing a song for the first time if you're a musician, whatever. So having some sort of practice that allows you to be more free, more playful, to make more mistakes is going to help train your brain to be comfortable with making mistakes, because that is exactly what creativity is all about. It's about building resilience. You are always starting somewhere. Whatever level you're at, you're not at the next level. There's someone at the next level. There's always someone above you. There's always someone who has better art than you, or you want to emulate what their artwork looks like. So be comfortable with the stage that you're in. If that's beginner, if that's, you know, you've been painting for 5 years, whatever it is, be comfortable with where you are and build a practice that can be easy and attainable for 5 to 15 minutes a day to help you build that resilience, because that is how you're going to change. That is how you're going to get better at your creativity and at watercolor or photography or whatever, is those little practices of helping your guard down so that you can be okay with making mistakes. All right? It's a life lesson packed in there somewhere as well. But I'm gonna leave you at that. Those are the most common mistakes that I see in all levels of artists and how to fix them. Make sure you like this video, comment any that you think I missed. Obviously, I didn't cover them all. That was not the intention, but the most common ones, I think we nailed them. So, but let me know in the comments. Make sure you're subscribing to this channel. I drop a lot of videos on here. Every Saturday we're dropping a new tutorial or a new video like this. Make sure you check out my online course, The Art Within. We are in the middle of revamping it currently as I'm recording this video, and it's getting incredible. And even if you are already a student of the Art Within, you get all the updates for free, so don't worry about it. But we're also creating a creativity database that is going to help you implement whatever you're trying to learn and structure it in a way that's going to allow your creativity to play, because without structure, creativity is chaos. So go check it out once it's ready. It'll be dropping in August, I believe, of 2024. So thank you so much for watching this video. Obviously, every sort of engagement, liking, subscribing to this channel, commenting, etc., is extremely helpful to us and our channel, and preaching the good word of creativity and art and getting it out there into the lives and homes of the many. So please continue to engage, and I will see you in the next video.